In ancient Greek religion and Greek mythology, Demeter, /Demeter Attic, delta eta mu tau eta rho dmtr, Doric, delta alpha mu tau eta rho da with macron tr, is the goddess of the harvest, who presided over grains and the fertility of the earth. Her cult titles include Cyto, Sigma Iota Tau, she of the grain, as the giver of food or grain, and Thesmophoros, Theta Epsilon Sigma Mu, Thesmos, divine order, unwritten law, Phoros, bringer, bearer, law bringer, as a mark of the civilized existence of agricultural society. Though Demeter is often described simply as the goddess of the harvest, she presided also over the sacred law, and the cycle of life and death. She and her daughter Persephone were the central figures of the Eleusinian mysteries that predated the Olympian pantheon. In the linear B Mycenaean Greek tablets of circa 1400–1200 BC found at Pylos, the two mistresses and the king may be related with Demeter, Persephone, and Poseidon. Her Roman equivalent is Ceres. It is possible that Demeter appears in linear A as Demeter on three documents, ARZF1 and 2, and KYZA2, all three apparently dedicated in religious situations and all three bearing just the name, Demeter on ARZF1 and 2. It is unlikely that Demeter appears as Demeter in a linear B, Mycenaean Greek, inscription, Pi n 609, the word, Demeter, probably refers to households. On the other hand, Sitopoteinija, Potnia of the grain, is regarded to refer to her Bronze Age predecessor or to one of her epithets. Demeter's character as mother goddess is identified in the second element of her name meter, mu tau eta rho, derived from Proto-Indo-European *metr, mother. In antiquity, different explanations were already proffered for the first element of her name. It is possible that delta, a word which became gamma, in Attic, is the Doric form of delta, earth, the old name of the chthonic earth goddess, and that Demeter is Mother Earth. This root also appears in the linear B inscription Enesidone, earth shaker, as an aspect of the god Poseidon. However, the Da with macron element in the name of Demeter, is not so simply equated with earth according to John Chadwick. The element De may be connected with Deo, a surname of Demeter probably derived from the Cretan word Dea, delta eta, ionic Zia, zeta epsilon iota, meaning barley, so that she is the mother and the giver of food generally. Arcadian cult to Demeter links her to a male deity, Greek, Pyro epsilon delta rho omicron, Perdros, who accompanied the great goddess and has been interpreted as a possible substitution for Poseidon. Demeter may therefore be related to a Minoan great goddess. An alternative, Proto-Indo-European etymology comes through Potnia and Despoina, where De represents a derivative of Pi *dem, house, dome, and Demeter is mother of the house, from Pi *dems metr. Agricultural deity. According to the Athenian rhetorician Isocrates, Demeter's greatest gifts to humankind were agriculture, particularly of cereals, and the mysteries which give the initiate higher hopes in this life and the afterlife. These two gifts were intimately connected in Demeter's myths and mystery cults. In Homer's Odyssey she is the blonde-haired goddess who separates the chaff from the grain. In Hesiod, prayers to Zeus Thonios, chthonic Zeus, and Demeter help the crops grow full and strong. Demeter's emblem is the poppy, a bright red flower that grows among the barley. In Hesiod's Theogony, Demeter is the daughter of Cronus and Rhea. At the marriage of Cadmus and Harmonia, Demeter lured Aeson away from the other revelers. They had intercourse in a ploughed furrow in Crete, and she gave birth to a son, Plautos. Her daughter by Zeus was Persephone, queen of the underworld. Festivals and cults. Demeter's two major festivals were sacred mysteries. Her Thesmophoria festival, 11–13 October, was women only. Her Eleusinian mysteries were open to initiates of any gender or social class. At the heart of both festivals were myths concerning Demeter as mother and Persephone as her daughter. Demeter's virgin daughter Persephone was abducted to the underworld by Hades. Demeter searched for her ceaselessly, preoccupied with her loss and her grief. The seasons halted, living things ceased their growth, then began to die. Faced with the extinction of all life on Earth, Zeus sent his messenger Hermes to the underworld to bring Persephone back. Hades agreed to release her if she had eaten nothing while in his realm, but Persephone had eaten a small number of pomegranate seeds. This bound her to Hades and the underworld for certain months of every year, either the dry Mediterranean summer, when plant life is threatened by drought, or the autumn and winter. There are several variations on the basic myth. In the Homeric hymn to Demeter, Hecate assists in the search and later becomes Persephone's underworld attendant. In another, Persephone willingly and secretly eats the pomegranate seeds, thinking to deceive Hades, but is discovered and made to stay. In all versions, Persephone's time in the underworld corresponds with the unfruitful seasons of the ancient Greek calendar, and her return to the upper world with springtime. Demeter's descent to retrieve Persephone from the underworld is connected to the Eleusinian mysteries. Demeter and her daughter Persephone were usually called the goddesses, often distinguished as the older and the younger in Eleusis. Demeters in Rhodes and Sparta. The Thesmophora, the legislators in the Thesmophoria. The great goddesses, in Arcadia. The mistresses in Arcadia. In Mycenaean Pylos, Demeter and Persephone were probably called queens, wana swa. The myth of the capture of Persephone seems to be pre-Greek. In the Greek version Plautos, pi lambda omicron tau omicron, wealth, represents the wealth of the corn that was stored in underground silos or ceramic jars, pithoi. Similar subterranean pithoi were used in ancient times for funerary practices as fused with Persephone, the queen of the underworld. At the beginning of the autumn, when the corn of the old crop is laid on the fields, she ascends and is reunited with her mother Demeter, for at this time the old crop and the new meet each other. According to the personal mythology of Robert Graves, Persephone is not only the younger self of Demeter, she is in turn also one of three guises of the triple goddess Koret, the youngest, the maiden, signifying green young grain, Persephone, in the middle, the nymph, signifying the ripe grain waiting to be harvested, and Hecate, the eldest of the three, the crone, the harvested grain, which to a certain extent reduces the name and role of Demeter to that of group name. Before her abduction, she is called Koret, and once taken she becomes Persephone, she who brings destruction. Demeter at Eleusis. Demeter's search for her daughter Persephone took her to the palace of Celeus, the king of Eleusis in Attica. She assumed the form of an old woman, and asked him for shelter. He took her in, to nurse Demophon and Triptolemus, his sons by Metanira. To reward his kindness, she planned to make Demophon immortal. She secretly anointed the boy with ambrosia and laid him in the flames of the hearth, to gradually burn away his mortal self. But Metanira walked in, saw her son in the fire and screamed in fright. Demeter abandoned the attempt. Instead, she taught Triptolemus the secrets of agriculture, and he in turn taught them to any who wished to learn them. Thus, humanity learned how to plant, grow, and harvest grain. The myth has several versions. Some are linked to figures such as Eleusis, Rarus, and Trochilus. The Demophon element may be based on an earlier folk tale. Demeter and Poseidon. Demeter and Poseidon's names appear in the earliest scratched notes in Linear B found at Mycenae and Mycenaean Pylos, Enesidone, earth shaker, for Poseidon, and Esitopoteinija, who is probably related with Demeter. Poseidon carries frequently the title Wanaka, Wanax, in Linear B inscriptions, as king of the underworld, and his title Enesidone indicates his chthonic nature. In the cave of Amnisus, Crete, Anisidaion is related with the cult of Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth. She was related with the annual birth of the divine child 42 during the Bronze Age, a goddess of nature, dominated both in Minoan and Mycenaean cult, and Wanax, Wanaka, was her male companion, Perdros, in Mycenaean cult. She and her Perdros survived in the Eleusinian cult, where the following words were uttered: Mighty Potnia bore a strong son. However, there is no evidence that originally the name of Potnia was Demeter. Tablets from Pylos record sacrificial goods destined for the two queens and Poseidon, to the two queens and the king Wana Swa, Wanakte. The two queens may be related with Demeter and Persephone, or their precursors, goddesses who were not associated with Poseidon in later periods. An exception is the myth of isolated Arcadia in southern Greece. Despoina is daughter of Demeter and Poseidon Hippios, horse Poseidon. These myths seem to be connected with the first Greek-speaking people who came from the north during the Bronze Age. Poseidon represents the river spirit of the underworld, and he appears as a horse, as it often happens in northern European folklore. He pursues the mare Demeter, and she bears one daughter who obviously originally had the form or the shape of a mare too. Demeter and Despoina were closely connected with springs and animals, related to Poseidon as a god of waters, and especially with Artemis, the mistress of the animals and the goddess of, among others, the hunt. Demeter as mare goddess was pursued by Poseidon, and hid from him among the horses of King Anchios, but could not conceal her divinity. In the form of a stallion, Poseidon caught and covered her. Demeter was furious, Erinis, at Poseidon's assault. In this furious form, she is known as Demeter Erinis. But she washed away her anger in the river Loddon, becoming Demeter Laugia, the bathed Demeter. In her alliance with Poseidon, Carl Quirinii noted, she was earth, who bears plants and beasts, and could therefore assume the shape of an ear of grain or a mare. She bore a daughter Despoina, Delta Sigma Pi Omicron Iota Nu Alpha, the mistress, whose name should not be uttered outside the Arcadian mysteries, and a horse named Arion, with a black mane and tail. In Arcadia, Demeter's mare form was worshipped into historical times. Her Zoanon of Phegalia shows how the local cult interpreted her, a Medusa type with a horse's head with snaky hair, holding a dove and a dolphin, probably representing her power over air and water. The second mountain, Mt. Eleos, is about 30 stades from Phegalia, and has a cave sacred to Demeter Melaine Black. The Phegalians say, they accounted the cave sacred to Demeter, and set up a wooden image in it. The image was made in the following fashion: it was seated on a rock, and was like a woman in all respects save the head. She had the head and hair of a horse, and serpents and other beasts grew out of her head. Her chiton reached right to her feet, and she held a dolphin in one hand, a dove in the other. Why they made the Zoanon like this should be clear to any intelligent man who is versed in tradition. They say they named her black because the goddess wore black clothing. However, they cannot remember who made this Zoanon or how it caught fire, but when it was destroyed the Phegalians gave no new image to the goddess and largely neglected her festivals and sacrifices, until finally barrenness fell upon the land. Pausanias, Description of Greece 8.42.1 ff. Titles and functions. Demeter's epithets show her many religious functions. She was the corn mother who blesses the harvesters. Some cults interpreted her as Mother Earth. Demeter may be linked to goddess cults of Minoan Crete, and embody aspects of a pre-Hellenic great goddess. It is possible that the title Mistress of the Labyrinth that appears in a Linear B inscription belonged originally to Sito, the Great Mother Demeter, and in the Eleusinian mysteries this title was kept by her daughter Persephone, Coret or Despoina. However, there is not any evidence that the name of Potnia in Eleusis was originally Demeter. Her other epithets include Triptolemus, Demeter, and Persephone by the Triptolemos painter, ca. 470 BC, Louvre. Agonippe, the mare who destroys mercifully, nightmare. Potnia, mistress, in the Homeric hymn to Demeter. Hera especially, but also Artemis and Athena, are addressed as Potnia as well. Despoina, mistress of the house, a Greek word similar to the Mycenaean Potnia. This title was also applied to Persephone, Aphrodite, and Hecate. Thesmophoros, giver of customs or even legislator, a role that links her to the even more ancient goddess Themis, derived from Thesmos, the unwritten law. This title was connected with the Thesmophoria, a festival of secret women-only rituals in Athens connected with marriage customs. Erinis, implacable, with a function similar with the function of the avenging Dike, Justice, goddess of moral justice based on custom rules who represents the divine retribution, and the Erinyes, female ancient chthonic deities of vengeance and implacable agents of retribution. Chloe, the green shoot, that invokes her powers of ever-returning fertility, as does Thonia. Thonia, in the ground, Chthonic Demeter in Sparta. Ainsidora, sending up gifts from the earth, applied to Demeter in Pausanias 1.3-1.4, also appears inscribed on an Attic ceramic a name for Pandora on her jar. Europa, broad face or eyes, at Lividia of Boeotia. She was the nurse of Trophonius to whom a chthonic cult and oracle was dedicated. Kidaria in the Mysteries of Phenios in Arcadia, where the priest put on the mask of Demeter kept in a secret place. It seems that the cult was connected with the underworld and with an agrarian magic. Demeter might also be invoked in the guises of Malaphoros, apple-bearer or sheep-bearer, Pausanias 1.44.3. Lucia, bathing, Pausanias 8.25.8. Thermasia, warmth, Pausanias 2.34.6. Achaea, the name by which she was worshipped at Athens by the Gephyrians who had emigrated from Boeotia. Poppy goddess. Theocritus wrote of an earlier role of Demeter as a poppy goddess. For the Greeks, Demeter was still a poppy goddess, bearing sheaves and poppies in both hands. Idol 7.157. In a clay statuette from Gezi, Heraklion Museum, Karani 1976 Fig 15, the Minoan poppy goddess wears the seed capsules, sources of nourishment and narcosis, in her diadem. It seems probable that the great mother goddess, who bore the names Rhea and Demeter, brought the poppy with her from her Cretan cult to Eleusis, and it is certain that in the Cretan cult sphere, opium was prepared from poppies. Kirani 1976, p. 24. Cult places. Major cults to Demeter are known at Eleusis in Attica, Hermion, in Crete, Megara, Selii, Lerna, Aegila, Munichia, Corinth, Delos, Priene, Ochragas, Iasos, Pergamon, Selinus, Tegea, Thoricus, Dion, in Macedonia, Lycosaura, Mesembria, Enna, Sicily, and Samothrace. An ancient Amphictyony, probably the earliest, centered on the cult of Demeter at Anthele, New Theta Lambda Eta, which lay on the coast of Malis south of Thessaly. This was the locality of Thermopylae. After the First Sacred War, the Anthela body was known thenceforth as the Delphic. Demeter of Mysia had a 7-day festival at Pellene in Arcadia. Pausanias passed the shrine to Demeter at Mysia on the road from Mycenae to Argos, but all he could draw out to explain the archaic name was a myth of an eponymous Mysius who venerated Demeter.